Thank you, Michel, for giving up your time today. So if it's okay with you, I'll just do a short introduction of your history, because it's a very interesting history of Maison Drappier. And then I'll put the rest on my website so people can have a look and see a little bit of your chronological timeline. So the history of Maison Drappier is really interesting. It dates back to 1604 with Remy Drappier, who was a cloth merchant, which is, I believe, where the name Drappier comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought so. My French is a bit rusty, so I don't speak much French now.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
However, in 1808, Francois, your maternal ancestor, started to run a wine vineyard. And then shoot forward back down to 1979, you took over running the family business from your father, André Drappier, and you're the seventh generation Drappier family member to run the business. Now,
Absolutely.
I was going to go into the different types of grapes and wine, but I think it'd be better if it comes from you. Can you quickly go over the different champagnes you have and the grapes that you grow in your vineyards?
Sure. The grapes that we use mostly is Pinot Noir.
Mm.
The old name for this variety is Morillon Noir, and that
Okay.
variety was introduced in Champagne by a monk. His portrait is on the chimney behind me. He's a monk called Saint Bernard. That was in 1115
Okay.
when he has imported this variety from Burgundy to Champagne
Mm.
to produce red wine. Of course, those years, red wine was the blood of Christ. It was for the church. And then he planted more and more until it became a big vineyard.
Mm.
And that is why Drappier today still uses a big majority of
Okay.
this variety.
Mm.
We have, in fact, 7 varieties. There's 3 major varieties that are known in Champagne. Pinot Noir, 70 plus percent,
Mm.
15% Chardonnay,
Mm.
10% of Meunier, which is another kind of Pinot Noir. And
Okay.
then we have another 4 old varieties that have almost disappeared: Arban, Petit Méliès, Blanc-Vrai,
Mm.
and Fromenteau.
Okay. Okay. So but you've mainly kept, so they've disappeared, but mainly you keep the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, and the Meunier, is it?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. And you have some signature champagnes, which are,
What do you mean by signature? You mean
is
most
it,
important champagne?
yes, your Carte d'Or and
Yes,
the Brut
exactly.
Nat. Mm.
Carte d'Or, the yellow, it's a yellow label that is
Mm.
a reminder of the quince fruit, because this
Mm.
champagne has hints of quince fruit. Carte d'Or yellow label. Number 2 in volume would be Brut Nature, which
Okay.
is a 100% Pinot Noir,
Okay.
uh, zero dosage, so
Mm.
absolutely dry champagne. And the third most famous would be probably the Grand Cendré,
Mm.
which is a prestige cuvée vintage that
Okay.
is released always after 10 years maturation, and it's always a vintage. And then we
Okay.
have many others. We have a
Mm.
Blanc de Blanc, we have Rosé, Brut Nature, Rosé, and so on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for explaining that. Now, as you know, I contacted you regarding climate change, which is a subject that's impacting on everyone, regardless what field you're in. But with wine growers, I mean, producing a wine and growing your grapes in a vineyard is very much like a science. It's not a slapdash. It's very specific. I imagine you want the correct climate, the correct conditions for a particular type of grape. So with that in mind, with Pinot Noir needing a cool, moderate climate, how is that impacting on your wine production? With if climate, as it is beginning to rise and be very uh, erratic, how is that impacted on your champagnes and wines?
Hmm. Yeah, very good question. First thing, we must remember
Mm.
that vineyard is coming from the Mediterranean area.
Mm.
Of course, there were some vitis million years ago in Champagne, north of France, like everywhere. But the cultivation of the grape to produce a wine, a quality wine, it comes from the Middle East, Georgia, Greece, Italy, and so on.
Mm.
So for 1,000 years, the production of wine is influenced by the sun. So, in fact, Champagne was the most northern wine producing area up to now.
Okay.
And many years, I knew that when I was a child, and my parents and my grandparents, we had not so good years because sometimes there is not enough sun to produce a good wine. So in fact, global warming, if it is a problem for Provence, for Spain, it maybe for Rhone or maybe for Burgundy, it was not for Champagne because it has been positive. When before we used to have 3 good vintages out of 10 years, for the past 20 years, we now have 7 good vintages out of 10 years. So the effect of global warming is positive because more sugar, more comfort for the vine.
Okay, so that's a good thing. So I was going to say later, it's not a negative for everyone's. For certain wine producers, it will be a positive. I think for California and certain other areas, they're finding that perhaps it may be a negative in the future. However, if temperatures do continue to rise, will that still remain a positive, or is it going to change? Will you have to change your philosophy? I know you've got a very much organic philosophy in how you produce your wines. Will that have to change, or because I know, well, will that have to change really?
Yeah, absolutely. So far, it has been positive. But you're absolutely right. If the temperature, not if, it will, temperature will rise, and it is going to be a problem in the next decades. So we have means to fight against this problem. We have many means. First, we are planted on many slopes, oriented south, mostly south, because when the Romans came, they chose the steepy slopes facing south towards the sun to get the heat of the sun. But we have also some coteaux exposed to the east, to the west, or to the north. And I found personally in my past 40 years of vinification that some patches facing north can be very good, very useful, some very hot years. So we can choose different exposures. That's one thing. We can also harvest earlier, and this is what we have started to do. Last year was the earliest picking date ever. And we broke the record of 1822.
Okay.
So in 1822 we had a very early year. So it's not the first year that we experiencing hot years, but for 2 centuries we have broken the record. So we harvest earlier so that we get more finesse, more freshness. Also, being organic means a higher acidity. When you are organic, the pH of your soil is lower, and you get more acidity in your must, in your juice, and that gives more freshness. So this is another way to get to fight against too sweet, too alcoholic wines. And I can speak another hour about that subject. I don't know if you need more explanations.
No, you speak as much as you want. I mean, I'm keeping an eye on the clock so we don't get cut off, because that would be terrible. But no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I read in 2019 you won an award for innovation. Uh, will that, because we always talk about global climate change, the warmer side, temperatures getting warmer, but as you may well be aware, weather's becoming more erratic and severe. So we're now facing perhaps more severe winters. How does that impact on you on the opposite scale?
Okay, so far the winters have not been so dramatic,
Mm,
so cold. Uh, in Champagne, it's rather an average temperature which is higher.
mm,
Last winter, we had some very cold nights. I think we reached minus 13 or 14 degrees for a few nights, but
mm,
this is absolutely normal in Champagne.
mm,
And it was good news because the year before it was not so cold.
mm.
We are not experiencing winter deep frost.
Okay.
So we don't see any danger from that point of view. The problem could be when you mention erratic weather,
Mm,
it could be a long period of rain
mm.
or a long period of drought.
Yes,
And
yes, of course.
that, yes, we have experienced that.
Mm,
But fortunately, Champagne, it has a latitude that is quite comfortable. Also, Champagne is at the limit between the Atlantic influence and the Western Europe continental influence.
mm.
So it's quite comfortable. We are not exposed to extreme
Okay.
extreme drought or
Mm,
extreme frost. And we can cope with that situation by having vineyards more deeply rooted in the soil.
mm.
We can trim less to leave more leaves
Okay.
so that we have more shade and the grapes can be protected from the sun. We have made we have seen in the past years that it's we have ways.
Yeah, of
We are
course.
again. We are not in Morocco. We are
Mm.
not in California where
No.
it can be very hot and dry.
Mm.
And yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, no, of course. Yeah, you've got a weather that's more moderate than, yes, than Morocco, California, or South Africa. I don't know what's that like. So yes,
exactly.
definitely. Um, with um, with potential, well, with changing weather, without you giving away any business secrets, will there be a change in the type of grape that you'll be growing, or will you be sticking to Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier and Chardonnay? Is that your staple grape that you will be sticking to in the future, do you see?
Okay. First thing I wanted to say, maybe it's another question you wanted to ask me, is that we really want to fight against global warming.
Mm,
And as you know, we are the only house to be carbon neutral
mm,
certified in France. And this is why we had this award in London, drink business in 2017, and another award in Paris in
mm.
1919. Because the fact that we are carbon neutral, we have our electricity from the soil, we have
Oh,
wind turbines that we have invested in India because we thought that the northern hemisphere must help the southern hemisphere
mm,
to fight against that, and many other things, electric cars and all these things. We have no fuel anymore. We use organic
okay.
petrol for our tractors
Mm.
and so on.
Oh,
So it
that's,
is very important that we try, everyone, every
mm,
citizen of the planet should try to avoid global warming. Now, I'm absolutely convinced that we are going to be on a warmer climate, that's
mm,
for sure.
mm,
So we have not decided to change our varieties,
mm,
but it's true that the Arban, which is a variety that has been almost abandoned
mm,
uh, centuries ago because it would not ripe,
mm.
it is doing a comeback. a little comeback because
Mm.
it's low yield, complicated, but today this variety does mature.
Yeah.
We can produce wonderful champagne from that variety. So this is a good example that we can change the variety.
Mm.
It's just a little start.
Yeah.
The Pinot Noir, we will not change this because Pinot Noir is really the DNA of the Drappier house
Okay.
and the Champagne region.
Of
But
course.
again, we will choose a massal selection,
Mm.
uh, different type of Pinot Noir, and we are not Drappier, but with the Champagne Committee, working on a brand new variety. I cannot disclose
Of
all
course. Yeah. Yeah. No,
all
that's fine.
things, but we are working on a new variety that takes the chromosomes
Mm.
of the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir, and from some varieties, old varieties that were very resistant to heat and drought.
Yeah.
So these varieties are local. We are not going to import anything from Chile or South Africa,
Mm.
but we work to create maybe
Mm.
a new variety for the long term. But it will take decades before
Yes.
it is ready.
Of course, yes. No, I'm always amazed when you hear about wine production. It is a science and an art at the same time, filled with passion. When you hear about new varieties and how you talk about it, the passion comes through, and you can see that. Uh,
Mhm.
Thank you for the for you insight into what you're doing to combat climate change. You're saying you've got wind turbines, electric car. Is electric cars? Did you say? And so on. Do you think the wine industry as a whole, I know that's a very difficult, we'll stick with France and Europe perhaps because it's too big to say as a whole, that they're doing enough to combat global warming, or that more needs to be done? Because obviously, from what you've told me, you're full steam ahead to co- do your part, which is excellent. Do you think the wine industry as a whole needs to do more?
Yes, I think the wine industry is not doing enough,
Mm,
but it is all about finance. We are
mm,
an independent house.
mm,
I own the house with my father. He will
mm.
turn 95 soon.
Oh,
My children,
congratulations. Mm.
thank you. He's in good shape. He drinks
Oh,
good
good.
champagne every day, so
Oh,
he's
good.
fit.
That's excellent.
And I have three children and two grandchildren.
Oh,
We are a 100% family-owned business,
mm,
and we don't need to give money to the shareholders
mm,
and to wait for their decision and their advice.
mm,
So we have decided that we would produce the type of champagne that we like.
mm,
um, we want to be carbon neutral because we think it is we are citizens of the planet. We are
yes.
not we are not French. We are not French. We're not European. We are just human
Mm,
on this little tiny planet. And because I found that we can do it. I mean, it is a lot of money.
mm,
The return on investment is sometimes zero,
mm,
or it takes years. For
mm,
example, the solar panels,
mm.
we have already a return on investment on the first investment I did 12 years ago.
Oh, good.
And so it shows,
Mm,
of course, 10 years is a long time,
mm,
but according to the life of a human
mm,
or the life of the planet, it's not long. So it's like planting trees for the forest. You
mm.
know that when you do that for your children, your grandchildren.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
we should all do the same,
Mm,
whatever you make, cars, computers, perfume, or wine. And
definitely.
I'm a bit disappointed that we are still 5 years after being the first winery to be carbon neutral. Five
Mm.
years later, we are still the only one,
Oh,
and we still make money. I mean, we
mm,
can afford it because champagne is a nice product. It's a luxury product.
Mm.
And the money that we get from champagne allows us to do that. And there are
Yeah,
so many other business who could spend a little bit of money on being on being better for the planet.
that's right. No, it's fantastic to hear you say that. And when you say it's about your children and grandchildren, because people our age, we won't see such a dramatic impact, but they will. I have a grandchild just 2 months ago, and I'm doing things trying to do for them, as we all do. We have family. It's the future generations that will be impacted the most, and it's fantastic that you're doing everything you can uh, to combat climate change. Now I'm
Yeah.
just checking the
And, al-
time.
and-
Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, sorry. And also, it's important to say that I don't believe in the décroissance. How do you say that in English?
Uh,
Décroissance, contrary of growth.
oh,
Um,
oh,
uh,
those.
some ecologists, some people
Oh,
think that
okay.
we should decrease our consumption, that we should not
Oh, I
fly
see. Yeah.
anymore, that
Mm.
we should go back to middle age.
Oh,
And that's the only way
mm.
to fight against global warming. I don't believe so. I think we
No.
can still have growth. We can
Mm.
still create. We
Yeah.
can expand our business, but the way we expand it must be different,
Mm.
and we can create value. We can create wealth
Yeah.
building a new way of building. We are going to build a new winery, and
Okay.
we're going to use agile
Mm.
wood, stones,
Okay.
and we create work. We will put money in the
Mm.
economy, and it's not a problem. We don't have to be to pollute to
No.
create wealth.
No,
Sorry.
definitely. No, 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 no. I'm glad you said that. You don't have to go back in time. Innovation is very hard to turn the clock back, but human beings are very inventive. You yourself won an award for innovation. So uh, it's about innovating and finding new fuels, new ways of creating the power we need to move forward. And you're using those utilities with solar panels, turbines. I'm having solar panels fitted this year, so it's about everyone doing a little bit. Now I'm just checking the time. I just want to ask you one more question. Sorry, it's only a short thing, but I don't want to be cut off in the middle of our conversation. Given that you're moving ahead when you're looking at climate change, and you're adapting your business to still be profitable and be carbon neutral, what would you say is the way forward for the wine industry? What is the one way forward if they were to take your example? What could they do as a whole to encourage people? Because, like you say, you're a family-run business, but some others are shareholders. What was the best way forward for them?
It's hard to say, because when you want to be more carbon neutral and more
Mm,
ecological, some of your money will go in that direction, and
mm,
that's money you cannot give to the shareholders for sure. At the same time, I think you improve the quality of the product. For
mm,
example,
mm,
being organic means a better champagne,
mm,
and producing a better champagne allows you to sell it at a higher price.
mm,
So for the past, when we started to be more ecological, let's say 20 years ago, I have seen the average price of my product going higher. So selling at a higher price.
mm,
And it's not only selling to wealthy people, it's not, it's the fact that our clientele,
mm.
rich and poor, they are happy to spend some money on a product that is good to the planet.
Yeah.
And here is the return on investment.
Mm,
And our business model is quite positive, and I don't regret what we have done
Mm.
20 years ago.
Oh,
I
thank
don't
you.
know if that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. People are willing to pay for a quality product because, and for one that does something towards the planet that we all live on. And I like your sentiment that you're a citizen of the planet, not of just France. And it's a mentality that that needs to be adapted. That it impacts all of us, whether you're in California making wine, France, England, Morocco, wherever, it impacts on you, and so it's important. I think your
Sorry,
father.
my father.
Yeah, bonjour.
Bonjour, papa.
Salut.
Anyway, I'll let you go, Michel. It's been a real pleasure. The time has gone so quick. I've enjoyed talking with you so much, but it's been a real pleasure, and I'm grateful that you gave up your time today.
Thank you very much.
No,
Yeah, all the
likewise.
best. Looking forward to seeing you one day in Champagne.
I hope so. Thank you, Michel. Thank you. Au revoir.